Welcome back, children. This is the Part-2 session of History, Unit-3, Rural Life and Society. Children, in this session, you will be learning about the Mahalwari system and the impact of British land revenue system on the cultivators. Okay, let's get started. First, let's learn about the Mahalwari system. But before we learn about the Mahalwari system, let's understand the meaning of the term Mahalwari. Children, the term Mahalwari is derived from the Hindi word Mahal, meaning a house or by extension a village. Children, the Mahalwari system had the features of both the permanent settlement and the Rayatwari system. Is it clear, children? Now, let's see by whom was the Mahalwari system introduced. Children, the Mahalwari system was first introduced by Holt Mackenzie in the year 1822. And later it was reviewed by Lord William Bentinck under the guidance of Robert Mertens Bird in the year 1833. Is it clear, children? Now, let's see the areas where the Mahalwari system was introduced. Children, this system was first adopted in Agra and Awadh and later extended to other parts of the United Provinces. Children, this system was also introduced in the Ganga Valley, the Northwestern Province, parts of Central India and Punjab in the year 1822. Is it clear, children? Next, let's see how the Mahalwari system was executed. Children, according to this system, the land was divided into units called mahals, and each mahal consisted of one or more villages. Now, children, these mahals were under a village headman called Lambardar, and it was the duty of the Lambardar to collect the tax or the revenue and give it to the British government. Is it clear, children? Next, let's see how the amount of tax or revenue was calculated. Children, the tax was calculated on the basis of the mahal, that is, the economic condition of that particular mahal. Children, initially, the state share of revenue, that is, how much of revenue had to be paid to the state, was fixed at 2/3 of the gross produce, which means it was 66% of the gross produce. Later, it was reduced to 50% by Lord William Bentinck. Children, the type of soil was also considered while fixing the average rent. Is it clear, children? Next, let's see how the amount of revenue was collected. Children, each individual farmer had to give his share of revenue or rent to the village headman or Lambardar. Then the Lambardar handed it over to the British government. And children, you have to note one thing here. The cultivator was the landowner and not the Lambardar. He was only an agent to the British government. Children, in this system also, the cultivators were heavily burdened because of high tax rates. So, children, did you understand so far? Good. Next, let's learn the salient features of the Mahalwari system. First feature, the Lambardar acted as intermediaries between the government and the villagers. So, children, as I already told you, under the Mahalwari system, the work of the Lambardar was only to collect the revenue from the peasants and give it to the British government. So, the Lambardar acted as the intermediary or as a middleman between the peasants and the British government. Is it clear? Second feature, it was a village-wise assessment. One person could hold a number of villages. So, children, under the Mahalwari system, the assessment was village-wise. So, one person or a single Lambardar could hold a number of villages. Is it clear? Third feature, the village community was the owner of the village common land. So under this system, the entire land of the village was common to all the village people or to the village community, and hence the entire community was the owner of the land. Is it clear? Fourth feature, the village land belonged to the village community. Children, this is the continuation of the third point. Now, since the village community were the owners of the land belonged to them. Is it clear, children? So, children, I hope you understood the salient features of the Mahalwari system. Good. Next, let's see the effects of the Mahalwari system. Children, the Lambardar enjoyed privileges which was misused for their self-interest. So, the Lambardars misused their powers and exploited the poor peasants. Is it clear? Next, this system brought no benefit to the cultivators. So, children, because of the high rate of tax, the farmers were not able to maintain their land. So, they had to borrow money from the moneylenders. And when they were not able to repay the money to the moneylenders on time, they became bonded laborers, which means they had to work without any benefit. So, this system brought no benefit to the cultivators. Is it clear, children? Next, it was a modified version of the zamindari system and benefited the upper class in villages. So, children, since the Mahalwari system had some of the features of the zamindari system, we can call it as a modified version of the zamindari system. And this system benefited only the upper class of people. Is it clear? So, children, I hope you understood everything about Mahalwari system. Good. Next, let's learn the impact of the British land revenue system on the cultivators. That is, how the British land revenue system impacted the cultivators. First, a common feature of all the settlements was the assessment to maximize income from land. It resulted in increasing land sales and disposition. Children, the main source of income for the British government was land tax. So, they charged high rates of tax on the peasants. And since the peasants were not able to manage the high rates of taxes, they had to sell their lands. Is it clear? Next, the peasants were overburdened with taxation. Due to the tax burden and famines, in general, the people suffered in poverty and burdened with debts. They had to seek the moneylenders who became rich and acquired lands from the peasants. So, children, since the peasants were heavily burdened with taxes, they had to seek the help of moneylenders. So, they borrowed money from the moneylenders, and if they were not able to repay them, their land was acquired by the moneylenders. So, this led to poverty and famine. Is it clear? Next, the zamindars, moneylenders and lawyers exploited the poor peasants. So, the poor peasants were exploited by the zamindars, moneylenders and lawyers. Is it clear? Next, the stability and continuity of the Indian villages was shaken. So, since the farmers were not able to do agriculture, they had to move to other places in search of a livelihood. So, the stability and continuity of the Indian villages was shaken. Is it clear? Next, cottage industries disappeared on account of the import of British goods, and the peasants had nothing to supplement their income. Children, cottage industries or small-scale industries on which the peasants depended on for their income when they were not able to do agriculture. But because of the import of British goods, these cottage industries disappeared, and as a result, the peasants were left with nothing for their income. Is it clear? Next, the old body of custom was replaced by new apparatus of law, courts, fees, lawyers, and formal procedures. Children, before the British came into India, the law and order issues were solved within the villages. It was entirely a private issue and there were no formal procedures. But after the British came into India, a new apparatus of law, courts, fees, lawyers, and formal procedures were followed. Is it clear? Next, the British policy proved advantageous only to the government of a privileged section of the society at the cost of the cultivators who were the rightful owners of their lands and claimants of a large share of the produce. So children, even if the cultivators were the rightful owners of their lands and had to be given the largest share of their produce, it was not at all advantageous to them. The only people who benefited were the British government and a few privileged sections of the society. So children, did you understand about the impact of the British land revenue system on the cultivators? Good. Children, I hope you understood all about Mahalwari system and the impact of the British land revenue system on the cultivators. Children, in the next session, I will be teaching you about peasants' revolts, which is a very, very important topic. So continue watching. Thank you, children.